lovely people, and welcome to another episode of Ask Arthur the Builder. My name is Yaa Serwaa Tweneboah, your guest host for today, and I'm here with Mr. James Arthur, an expert at all things building and construction, who will be giving us some really great educational tips on building projects in Ghana, especially for those of you in the diaspora or new to Ghana. So please like, share, and subscribe to this video. It's going to be really informative. I think you're going to learn a lot. So let's get right into it. So welcome back. I'm here with James Arthur.
How are you? We've gotten Yaa onto our show, and we've been trying to do this. She's currently in Ghana, from the States, was counsel. You were working for a couple companies.
Yeah.
Giving legal advice, or?
Yeah, I'm a licensed lawyer in New York, so I was working in-house for various companies, Fortune 500 companies, and hedge funds even in New York.
And now you're consulting for a large construction company here in Ghana?
Yes, I'm consulting for an indigenous construction company here called Capital, and I'm starting a project management company geared towards the diaspora for those who are looking to build here but aren't here, with my sister. It's called Yaa Akua. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that started later this year.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I have a few questions for you. You have Arthur Construction, correct?
Yes, Arthur Construction Company.
Right, which is a general construction company. And so I think I just want to understand from you, people that are in the diaspora, if someone from the diaspora is looking to build in Ghana, like what are some things that you think they should do? Or maybe more importantly, what are some things you think they definitely should not do?
Okay, when you're ready to build, one, you're definitely going to, okay, so let's start there. You're definitely going to need to hire a general contractor. If you're thinking about being your own general contractor and being your own project manager and hiring a foreman and hiring the different guys that are experts in the different disciplines that's needed to build a structure, I would say, unless you have experience doing that and you have some experience with doing things in Ghana, I wouldn't recommend it. A lot of what I do, maybe about 80% of what I do, is fixing the mistakes for people from the diaspora that kind of tried to do it on their own or tried to get maybe a foreman that wasn't so qualified. So I wind up fixing a lot of people's mistakes, and it winds up costing them, it increases the cost of their project anywhere from 10 to 35%. And that's quite a big number when your project might be $150,000, $200,000.
Right. And what are some of the most common mistakes that you find that you're fixing when people come to you when maybe they pick the wrong foreman or the wrong contractor or try to do it on their own?
Unfortunately, it's not in one specific area. It's so across the board. We encounter structural issues. We encounter mixed ratio issues with the mixes of concrete from cement. We encounter bending issues with reinforcement, steel reinforcement issues. We encounter finishing issues, a lot of attention to detail issues. All of my light sockets, where are they located? Awning a light and offing a light, is it in an intuitive location or is it just somewhere that's really inconvenient? Tons of attention to detail issues, tons of forward planning issues, and structural integrity issues. We see it across the board, unfortunately.
And especially with the structural integrity issues, I mean, that sounds expensive, and no one wants to be in a building that's going to collapse. So how does that issue come about? Is it because they were supposed to get an engineer involved and they didn't? Is it because the contractor they were using didn't do something right, or the architect didn't have like the proper plans? Like, how does a structural integrity issue come to be?
It can honestly happen a lot of different ways, although generally the directions, the instructions coming from the engineer and coming from the architect are fine. I haven't seen, I have seen issues, but no extreme major issues coming from the blueprint. Most of the issues come from how we interpret that blueprint. So the person reading that blueprint, which is generally the foreman on the ground and the contractor, either not reading it at all, reading it wrongly, or misinterpreting their reading of it. But it's a issue with the translation of that technical plan to the actual work being executed.
Got it. And who hires the foreman? Is that the general contractor?
Absolutely. Excellent question. The foremans for projects are hired by the general contractor unless somebody is acting as their own property developer. I mean, you can decide to act as your own property developer, and then you would hire a foreman, which would be the site manager in charge of everything that goes on site, which will coordinate all the other experts and will determine if the experts are doing what they're supposed to do on a day-to-day basis. So you could decide to hire your own foreman, or you can hire a general contractor, which then would utilize the foremans that he has to run the project.
Got it. Okay. And what are, especially for people in diaspora, right, who maybe are trying to start building or buying land and they're not currently here, what are the top 3 considerations you think should be going through their minds before or while they're in that process?
Okay. Budget and understanding the cost, I think, should be the number 1 consideration. Don't do something really big, really not well. I think that's a nice way to say it. Don't do something really big, not well. If you have a certain budget, do something small and make it amazing. Don't do something huge and make it. I've gone into people's houses, huge houses. I'm talking about 7 to 10 bedroom houses, multiple pools, multiple kitchens, but the finishing work on the project would be as if they're finishing like an apartment building or doing the finishing on, a real estate project that somebody was trying to build to sell, or even these are where you rent office spaces from, like a commercial office building, and they finish their home like that. And I think that's such an uncomfortable way to finish a house. It's not warm, it's not inviting, there are no personal touches, you didn't see anything that, okay, the person was trying to do this with this room or had any concept with the room. It's just, and it's a huge house, but the way it's finished. So that to say, make your project a little smaller if the budget isn't there, to get a better quality. So like fit
outcome. Your coat according to your size type of deal.
Can't be said any better than that. Absolutely.
Okay, and what are 2 other things you think people should think about?
Okay, location. I think it's very difficult for diasporans to understand where they want things to be located because they haven't lived here. So if you haven't lived in Accra, it's kind of hard to look on a map and find out where you want to live in Accra. I would tell you, try to spend 2 weeks to a month on the ground and have a clear understanding of what is the purpose of what I'm building. Okay, so if I'm building a private home, do I expect children? Are all my children out of school and graduated? Do I want to be next to a school, an airport, a job? Think of what the purpose of that home needs to serve.
Mm-hmm. I think one other thing I'd heard is in terms of development, for example, I think we're in Oyarifa now. Yes. I hope I said that right.
Yes.
We're in Oyarifa now, and I think one of the good things about Oyarifa is that it's very developed. And I think when it was being explained to me in terms of what development means, it's that, you know, there's a place where if you need to go to the hospital, like it's nearby. There's schools, there's electricity, there are roads for the most part, compared to Kaswa, which is like a bit outside of Accra, which is still, you know, there aren't roads, there isn't electricity and stuff like that. So I think, like, to your point of, you know, think about like what you're going to need and how much, you know, like, yes, you can get land in Kaswa, maybe it's cheaper, but are you willing to make that trade-off?
Absolutely. I mean, it couldn't be put any better. How I ended up, currently Legacy Apartments is located in Oyarifa. How I personally ended up in Oyarifa was from previous projects. At the time I was involved in a fruit juice company, and I was involved in a farm. And actually the farm is about 30 minutes from here in Eastern Region. And our major market where we distributed those products to were inside town, which is like East Legon going in the other direction. So I kind of situated myself in the middle between two places where I had to be, next to my market where I sell things, and next to the farm where we produce the raw materials to manufacture into the product. So that's how I kind of ended up here, and that was kind of the thought that I gave into getting this location when I was using it for that business, was just what is ideal for what, you know, what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to serve.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And then give us one more. What's the third consideration?
Yes. Okay, so lastly, I think what would be important, if you know your budget and you know the purpose of your project, I think you would want to consider matching your project with your land. So making sure that your structure fits its location well. Sometimes there's not that much thought that's given into that, but it's quite important that if you're doing a certain type of structure, that the land that you're utilizing to do that structure on, that they marry well, that they meet well.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And I think that kind of leads me into my next question. You know, you have Arthur Constructions, like, how do you think, if someone wants to build here in Ghana, how do you think your construction company really helps them to do that? Like, what added benefits do they get from having a general contractor such as yourself compared to going at it alone, or someone who's maybe not as qualified?
Okay, that's an excellent question. So with us, we specialize in working with people from the diaspora. So, but what that really means is, most of my life, I've lived outside of Ghana. I've been in Ghana now almost 10 years, but most of my life I've lived outside of Ghana. So when somebody explains to me that they want a his and her bathroom, and they want a linen closet, walk-in linen closet inside that bathroom, and they want some media inside that bathroom, I can visualize that in my mind. I can see that, and I can translate that to the real world. If you consult with a contractor that hasn't been outside, some of the things that you're asking for, they might have only seen it on TV, or they might have only seen it in a music video or something. They've never experienced it. Right. So they don't really grasp what you're asking for. Right. So that's one of the things that give us a little bit of an edge. I'm a very boutique style contracting company. So I only take on a certain amount of active projects at a time. I only take on 3 active projects at a time. So I actually have to work on your project. I'm not giving it out to a bunch of subcontractors to do all of it, and I'm just doing the marketing. So with that, I intimately involve myself inside the project and what I'm doing, and also make sure that when that project is done, anybody that you invite into your home or into your space, that project works as marketing for us. They might actually, well, who did this for you? And it's very nice. Right. So that's kind of what we do. don't go in it alone just to plug and say. I wouldn't recommend trying to build even a small house, even a 2-bedroom house, 2-bathroom. I wouldn't recommend doing it. Go with a contractor.
And why is that?
Because there are so many. You're doing something technical, and you're doing something that RCC work, reinforced concrete structures, are rated to last 100 years. So if you get this right, you're going to have a building that's going to last you 100 years or more structurally. If you go into this and do things wrong, you can have a building that lasts you 20 years, 25 years, 15 years. Does somebody want huge issues or huge problems or huge headaches in 20 years, 25 years of their property? It's a big deal.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. I think one home that I saw, and just speaking to your lost in translation thing with maybe some contractors on the ground, is I think there might be something in the Ghana building codes that says you have to have a window like in each room or something along those lines. And so their interpretation of that was putting windows inside the home, right? Which if you're, coming from outside of Ghana, you're looking at it like, why do I want a window in my bedroom looking out to the living room, right? Like, I don't want that. So yeah, I mean, these are like some of the things that I think that you come across when,
absolutely,
yeah, it just got lost, and then that costs money to fix it. So one of the projects you're working on in Ghana is a restaurant for a client who is outside of Ghana. So with that, like, do you think that you handle projects for clients that are outside of the country a bit differently than for those that are in the country?
In some ways, what we try to do is we try to take step-by-step videos. When we know that the client is outside, we try to keep the client in the loop by letting him see letting her see visually what's going on throughout the process. So generally with us, we'll start out with initial assessment. We'll go to the location. If you're not in the country, if you have a caretaker or somebody that we can meet with on this end that can lead us to the location, that's fine. Then we find out exactly what the client wants done. If we need to do a report or an assessment, we tell the client what that would cost for us to do. We make that deductible from our general contracting cost of the actual project. We have a contract that we enter into, and then we give a performer invoice, which breaks down exactly everything on the estimate, all the different elements. Once it's approved, we take 70% of the cost, and then the other 30% when the project is 90% complete.
Okay.
And then turn it over.
Okay, great. And I think, you were talking before about the differences between, your general contracting business and maybe some of the local contracting businesses. And I feel like what you just mentioned is a really big part of that, like in terms of having contracts and, giving invoices and having, amounts for how much things are going to cost, like ahead of time. How can you speak to how what you do there is a bit different than from maybe what some of the local contractors do?
Well, some people don't do those things for their clients and their customers. Sometimes it's because they aren't equipped to do it, or because they're trying to save cost or time from them, or they're trying to get over on people. There's a lot of different motivations. For us, we operate just as any small general contracting company that you would encounter anywhere else in the world. Transparency. I mean, with us, our cost is anywhere from 15 to 20%. So what your materials are is what your materials are. What the labor is what the labor is. And then our contracting cost is anywhere from 15 to 20%. And I just believe in doing everything transparent. This is what we're taking as a construction company. This is what your materials are costing, and this is what your labor is costing. So you can just understand what's going on. I mean, there's no benefit for added clandestineness to this operation. It's already listed as a blind item. Building a house is not like buying a car. Buying a car is not a blind item. Building a house is a blind item unless you've gone to school for a couple of different facets, because you won't be able to tell what is going into certain things. You wouldn't be able to tell. If I cast a pillar for you, you don't know how many iron rods I put in that pillar. You know how many iron rods it says that I'm supposed to put in the pillar. If you have a little bit of ability to read a blueprint, some people won't even be able to figure that out, but you won't know exactly what's done. So that's why the integrity of the person doing it for you is paramount. I mean,
right. We really can't stress that enough.
Yeah, it's so important. The integrity of the person doing it for you, and their feeling about their business. You know, if they have a love for what they're doing, the business that they're in, they're going to want to make sure that they build you the most amazing house or the most amazing apartment building that they can actually do with the budget that you provide, because that's how they continue their business. So.
And do you have a love for construction?
I personally do. It's and how it's grown on me so much is because coming from a business management and being a little bit of a serial entrepreneur, coming from that, this is so tangible. When I'm done after 6 months with a project, I can see exactly what I did for the last 6 months or the last 1 year, and that it's just, I enjoy it so much just to see exactly what I've done, what I've created for a customer or a client. So Arthur Construction Company came out of Legacy Apartments. People have come to Legacy Apartments from the diaspora. Associates, friends, they've seen it, and they were like, well, I don't want a 1-bedroom apartment, or I don't want a 2-bedroom apartment. I want a 4-bedroom house. Could you build it for me? And just saying yes to that, that's how it really all came about. So it came about not out of a need to do something. You know, a lot of times we get a job because we need a job. We need to support our families. We need to make ends meet. For me, that wasn't the case. I got into this because I was asked to do it for a friend, and I just enjoyed doing it so much that I started doing more of it. So it came out of really an authentic love for what we're doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think kind of, you know, speaking to, you know, the transparency piece and something that you add to projects just in terms of letting people know how much things are going to cost. Like, what do you suggest for maybe someone who, let's say, maybe they already have a contractor, or, you know, they're trying to source some materials on their own, like, but they're not here, or they've just come here. How do you know you're not getting ripped off? You know, how do you know this is really what cement blocks cost or iron rods cost, right? As you said, like, this is kind of a blind item, you know, purchase type of thing for a lot of people. They don't understand building. So how, when you're trying to handle, and maybe when you're even just trying to double check, okay, this is what they say materials cost, like, is that true, right? Like, how do you go about doing that?
So that's two excellent points. The first thing is, if you're doing this, why are you sourcing your own materials? When you go to buy a wardrobe, do you bring the materials? Most people don't bring their own fabric to their some people do, but it's not that common. Mm-hmm. Unless maybe you can't get a specific material that you're looking for, something like that. But you're doing that because you don't trust your contractor already.
Right.
You're starting off from a position of you don't really trust your contractor, so you're sourcing all your materials to reduce the amount of exposure you have of getting ripped off.
Right.
I think that's like the logic behind it. Am I?
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
true.
So one, I would suggest if you can't trust your contractor to purchase the materials, you might want to think about a different contractor. I think that would be one. Also, you see with that, it's difficult because let's take iron rods. I mean, I don't know how aware the audience might be. Is the audience aware that there are different types of the same exact rod? So if I have a 16 millimeter rod, iron rod, there's medium density steel rods. There's high tensile steel rods. There are galvanized steel rods. They're all used for different things in different applications. You're not going to know all of these things. You're not going to know there are different type of concrete blocks. There are different type of nails. There are different type of. There are so many different things or grades of things that are used for specific uses in building. If you're sourcing your material and you want to do it accurately, you're going to need a professional to come with you to tell you what you need to buy, because you're not going to know the right thing. So find a contractor that you can trust. If you need to source your own materials for your contractor, to me, you're already doing it yourself. You're already doing a bunch of work that's kind of one of the eases that you get from having a general contractor, that you don't have to run around. Most
Right.
of what we do, I think 75% of what I do is sourcing materials. So if somebody wants to come in and do 75% of the job, that doesn't necessarily. I don't think it helps anyone. With us personally, we don't allow the clients. We don't do builds where the clients are sourcing their own materials. If the clients have the materials already on ground because they started already, or because they bought, that's fine. We'll use the materials that you have, of course. We won't tell you to go out and no.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to get the materials and order the materials the way we know those materials are best, the proper materials from reputable suppliers. So that's important to us too. I think I answered one part of your question, but did I get to the other part?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was really just surrounding, if you are doing it yourself, sourcing materials, and then if you want to check to make sure your contractor isn't ripping you off.
I guess to check materials, what you would do is you would have to go to the suppliers directly and get prices for the material. Materials, when you're doing general contracting work, shouldn't be marked up like that. There are some handling charges that they sometimes get marked up, but materials shouldn't be marked up anything more than, if materials are marked up more than 20%, it's way too much. We're talking about maybe like 5% markup on certain materials. Other materials that don't need to be marked up at all. Okay. So that's really what somebody should look out for. I mean, I guess if somebody wants to check their contractor, they can look at one big ticket item on their invoice or two things and check those two items and see if those two items are at cost or marked up 15% or less. Then I think you have a decent situation.
Oh, that's a really good point. Like picking one or two of the bigger items to check. And in that regard, how would they do that? Like, is there a list that you know of, these people sell cement in Ghana, or these people sell iron rods in Ghana type of thing?
Well, building materials, because there's so much construction going on and development going on all around the country, building materials are very readily available. So what one has to be careful too is their location. So if somebody gets a price for, let's say, I don't know, graffietto paint. So that's 3-dimensional paint. It gives designs on the outside of buildings. But if that material is in Accra Central, and your house is in Abri, and we're building for you in Abri, you can't check the price that you get it for there and expect, because then you have to deal with the logistical transport of it. And certain things, it doesn't make sense to transport. Even if I can get it cheaper somewhere else, if there's somebody selling it that's right around the corner from where the build site is, I might make those purchases, even though it's more expensive, to save transportation and time and logistical costs. So
Right.
that's kind of in the technical end of getting it done. If you happen to know somebody that they have a contractor and they love that contractor, that's the best way to do it. I mean, I do that with doctors and lawyers and professionals that I know I'm not going to be able to fact check my doctor. I mean, I know that if I'm going in for a procedure, and I'm not going to be able to find out how many medical journals has he referenced before he made that decision to put the stint in. I wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
So with those things, your lawyer, you have to trust your lawyer. As you know, your doctor, you have to trust your doctor. Your contractor is right there up there with those people, honestly, because you're making them responsible for your home, how long your home is going to stand for, how many repairs you're going to do throughout the years. So it's a big responsibility that you're entrusting into their hands. So referrals, I guess, number one.
Okay.
Number two is, I mean, you can scout, you can go around and find out, well, who built that? I like that house. It's built well. Who did it?
Yeah.
You know, that type of stuff.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. So trust is the name of the game.
There's tons of trust involved in building and contracting. It's the truth. It's definitely a blind item.
Right. No, I like how you explain that. It definitely is. So I agree with you. So if I'm abroad, I want to purchase land and, build a home in Ghana. Like, how long can I expect to own the land for that I buy if I'm a non-Ghanaian citizen?
Okay. What that has to do with is a law that was passed in 1992 that has to do with freehold and leasehold land acquisition. So it's actually modeled after the UK system. So those of coming from the US might not be so familiar with the terminology, but pretty much freehold land is an outright purchase of a land. So when somebody gets a deed of convenience, they're getting it on freehold land, and then they're getting a land title for freehold land, which means they own that land forever, indefinitely. Now, you can't purchase freehold land as a non-Ghanaian, but there are ways to acquire freehold land as a non-Ghanaian completely legally. If somebody's interested in that, I would consult with an attorney, or if you wanted myself to, I have a little bit of experience assisting people with that. If you wanted myself to consult on that, definitely feel free to reach out and contact.
Okay.
So that's freehold. Then you have what we call leasehold. So non-citizens can purchase leasehold land for 50 years. I think that's what it is. And then leasehold land that is purchased by a citizen is a maximum leasehold of 99 years. So you have the 50-year lease and you have the 99-year lease. The non-citizen being available for that 50-year lease. Now, don't get that mistaken. If you own a piece of land through leasehold, which is a deed of assignment versus a deed of convenience, that's the difference in the documentation in the indenture. If you have that that leasehold land, you can draft the agreement in a way that says that your lease has to be renewed for a certain percentage of the original purchase price, which will protect whatever infrastructure that you put on it. It's not like you won't be able to continue the lease indefinitely. The point of the regulation was to stop non-Ghanaians from purchasing all of the available land, and then the actual Ghanaians not owning any of their land.
Right.
So that was the intention. Now that applies to Greater Accra. It doesn't apply outside Greater Accra. So you can purchase freehold land outside Greater Accra. I'm not sure how that applies to citizens and non-citizens. Although I know for citizens outside of Greater Accra, you can purchase freehold land. But inside Greater Accra, even as a citizen, if the land was sold initially by the family or stool, you can't legally purchase freehold land. You can't even do it. You have to purchase leasehold land. So.
Okay. And so it sounds like they definitely need to consult with someone like in the land buying process. I mean, obviously a surveyor, and I don't know if in, the UK or Europe, people are familiar with surveyors. In the US, I don't think it's a thing. But I never bought a home in the US, so maybe it is. But yeah, I feel like surveyors here also have a really big role to play when you're buying land. Can you talk a little bit about that?
A lot of people come in contact with surveyors because they get very intimately involved with the acquisition process. And sometimes it's necessary to get that intimately involved here in Ghana with the purchase process. So a surveyor, a land surveyor's responsibility is to determine the exact position of a piece of land. So that's really, the surveyor creates a document which is called your site plan. And that site plan is just a legal document that says that this piece of land is located at this exact location. That's really the surveyor's role. Because of all the land fraud issues and all of that stuff, one of the ways to get frauded is to not know exactly where the land is. I, as a seller, can tell you, okay, here's an indenture for a piece of land, everything check out. But you as a layman can't look at that site plan and determine if that site plan is actually the land that I showed you on the ground. And
Right.
that's where the surveyor would come in.
Right. And then doesn't the surveyor also take, the site plan that he or she does and check that with the lands commission to make sure, there's no litigation on the land, that the land wasn't actually sold to somebody else and now they're trying to sell it to you again, type of thing?
Okay, so a lot of people allow their surveyor to run a legal search at lands commission on the land, but it's not the job of the surveyor. It's actually your job as the purchaser. So you yourself as the purchaser can go down to lands commission and run a legal search. Once you have that site plan, you can run a legal search on that land.
Okay.
The people that generally wind up running these searches for people are lawyers, surveyors, and even contractors. I mean, we advise and assist. I personally don't get so involved in it, although I would advise, and for a legal search we can assist in running legal searches, because what a legal search is, you're going to get a document from the government signed and stamped by a government officer that's been appointed to draft that letter to say that, okay, this land is owned by this
Right.
person, or
Right.
not owned by this person,
Right.
what have you.
Which super important. And then we were talking a little bit about it earlier in terms of, you were saying people should come to Ghana 2 weeks to a month, figure out where they want to buy land, like what they're trying to do, what area makes the most sense. Just generally, do you have any areas, in maybe the Greater Accra region or even maybe outside of that you think, given the price and the location, are optimal, for buying land in order for residential purposes in Ghana?
Oh, it all depends really on your taste and what you want to do. The only suggestions that I would give is if you haven't spent that much time in West Africa and Africa and outside of the UK and the United States, I would definitely say you want something in Accra, in Greater Accra, that's very close to, because a lot of the things that you're used to, if you go to some of the other parts of the country, you might find it difficult to get some of those things and those creature comforts. So I would definitely suggest not going too far from Greater Accra.
Okay, got it. And if I'm outside of Ghana and I'm looking for an architect, a general contractor, even a surveyor, how can I do that? I mean, is there, a list of contractors and architects in Ghana? Like, how do you find somebody?
Unfortunately, there isn't. I mean, I'm sure if one got very ambitious, they can write to the Association of Architects and get a list from the government of licensed architects. I'm sure one could do that.
Ambitious.
If one was very, I mean, so for us as a general contractor, we employ all of those people.
Okay.
So currently, right now, I have 2 in-house architects. I have 3 different surveyors that I just have. They're just different because I use them for different types of things.
Okay.
And for engineers, we have 1 engineer that we work with that approves all of our work. So as general contractors, because it's so many different disciplines that takes to build a house, that's the point of a general contractor. So our whole purpose is to put together all of the different professionals that is needed to accurately build a structure. There are no lists. That's kind of why we're doing this and trying to reach as many people in the diaspora as possible, to let them know what to look out for, to give them the opportunity or the option to choose Arthur Construction Company if they want to choose that, or choose another construction company that's going to do the right thing by them,
right.
And get them the results that they're looking for.
Awesome. And just last question, how, in terms of, I'm outside of Ghana, I say to myself, I want to buy land and build a house. What does that process look like, or what should it look like in terms of what should happen first, second, third? Who should be involved? Like, how do I start? And then what should it look like when it's ending?
Okay. Well, depending on what type of project, there's 2 places to start. One place you can start with the land acquisition, or you can start with putting together your blueprint, your technical plan. Okay. If you decide to start with the land acquisition, first you would be looking in the real estate market for land for sale. So you would be looking on websites that sell land. You'd be looking at real estate agents. You'd be looking at property development companies that are selling land, and you'd be going to see the land. So that's what that would look like. After that portion, you might want to get your contractor involved quite early, because if we're involved very early, what we can do is we can make sure that the land that you're going to buy is adequate for what you're going to build. You can choose to employ a surveyor, or we can use our licensed surveyor to make sure that the land you're coming to buy is exactly where the seller says it is. So there are those checks. If you don't have experience with it, consult with somebody. Consult with somebody that you trust. Let somebody recommend somebody that's trusted in doing it to consult, because it's a little bit to navigate, and if you try to navigate it on your own with no experience, by all means you'll make mistakes. You'll make mistakes.
Right. And it's not an area you really want to make a mistake in.
So I mean, at the end of the day, you need to end up with a deed, an indenture, that's signed by the owner of that land. transferring the ownership of that land to you. And once you have your site plan, then we can complete a full technical plan, a blueprint, and we can send that blueprint to the assembly that will approve that, give us a building permit, and that will allow us to build. All of that we take care of. So from technical plans, from start to finish, the building wise, we take care of it. The land, we want the clients to come with the land already, although because it's so difficult to navigate, we're willing to consult on it. And we're also, if you watch some of our other videos, some of the people that you see in the videos are also great resources that can assist with the land portion of things.
Yeah, no, you're right about the land being a very tricky part of it and involving a lot of different pieces. I think one thing I advise people to do, especially, you know, like you said, there's so many different types of land that you can buy, but I feel like along with the indenture, to have a lawyer draft a contract of sale for you as it relates to the land. Just like spelling out clearly like how much you're paying for it, what you expect the seller to do, what the buyer is expected to do, timelines as it relates to when you're going to give a portion of the money, like because sometimes you can give a portion like once the maybe surveyor has gone and determined that there's no litigation on the land and the land actually belongs to that person, you give a portion of the money, and then once they give you physical, you know, title to the land, then maybe you give the remainder, or maybe you wait until the land is actually registered in your name, which can take anywhere from 6 months to a year. I've seen it take sometimes. So yeah, I feel like just having those layers of protection are helpful, at least mentally, if nothing else.
I don't think it's a bad idea to get an attorney involved with the purchase of land here in Ghana. I don't see it to be a bad idea. So I guess it's also one's personality, and I'm kind of a technocrat. I believe in crossing T's and dotting I's.
Right.
I've gotten my personal lawyer involved in land acquisitions before. The more agreements, the more contracts that you have, it usually works to your advantage. So I wouldn't, and that shouldn't scare anybody off. I mean, stateside, if you were buying land, you would involve your lawyer. So it's not really something that I would definitely say yes. If you're ready to get a lawyer involved, definitely involve your lawyer in regards to the acquisition process, because it can afford you levels of protection. I mean, I come from the world of escrows and all of those things, so I think those things are good. They're foreign here. Not too many people use them. But if the acquisition, especially if it's a larger acquisition, or it's a lot of land, or it's a more expensive land, you can force the seller into agreeing to having an escrow account and having some of those things done that will protect you.
Right.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I've even learned a lot today, so I appreciate it. I'm sure all of you have learned a lot today as well. Thank you for being with us. So if people want to ask you questions, get in touch with you, are you open to that? How can they do that?
Absolutely. All the information is in the comment bar below. Also, please feel free, leave comments, positive, negative. We need the feedback. We would love to know if what we're doing is helpful at all. Feel free, if you think it's worth your time, to subscribe to the channel, and hopefully we'll be able to put out a next episode soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.